This is London Tonight with Natasha Kaplinsky.
Hello, good evening. The new boss of the Metropolitan Police is backing the use of taser guns by his officers. Commissioner Bernard Hogan-Howe said today he wants to see wider availability of the weapons and suggested that they could be fitted in police cars. After 4 police officers were stabbed answering a 999 call at the weekend, would the taser help protect police and the public, or are they dangerous and unnecessary? Marcus Powell has our top story.
Police confront a man armed with a machete in South London, yet they have just a wheelie bin and official issue batons to protect themselves as they try to overpower him. Just one incident which has led to calls for more frontline officers to have taser stun guns. This man was finally arrested without harming officers, but at the weekend a man stabbed 4 officers in Kingsbury before he was overpowered and arrested. That led to the police commissioner being put on the spot by one of his own officers on his radio phone-in this morning.
I was one of a number of armed response vehicles that was run into the incident on Saturday.
Okay.
But that's one of a number of incidents where borough officers really could have done with taser readily available, because options like CS and batons didn't work.
I hear on Saturday, when you went to that job, it took about 20 minutes from that order for the first firearms officer to arrive, and that can be too long, as we saw in this case. So there's a lot more work to do, and we need to talk to the police authority. But in short, my first answer stands. I want to see wider availability of taser.
Stand still! Stand still! Mr. Taser, look at the red dot on your chest!
Tasers aren't used a lot on the streets, as only a tiny percentage of officers are actually trained. They were drawn 300 times in the past year and fired on 100 occasions, but the rank and file clearly believe they could and should be used much more.
Taser! Hold!
Tasers have been used by the Metropolitan Police for the past 8 years, but only a small number of officers are trained and authorised to use them. They are specialist firearms officers and members of the Territorial Support Group. Some 3,000 officers in all, but only 1,000 tasers have been purchased.
As far as 24/7 normal patrolling police officers is concerned, they have to wait for backup to come perhaps 10, 15, 20 minutes away before that is available to them, and we think it should be available to them.
The Federation believe every officer who wants to carry a taser should be trained to do so, but the Commissioner won't back that. One of our former colleagues was the first to find out what it was like to be on the receiving end after volunteering to go to the States, where they've been in use for many years. He found he was completely incapacitated. But that's exactly what concerns opponents of the plans for more tasers to be available here.
Well, tasers are potentially lethal, very dangerous weapons, and for amnesty they should only be in the hands of the most highly trained officers, and then only used in situations that are genuinely life-threatening.
The new Commissioner promised to get tough on criminals, but he's being cautious about more tasers, suggesting they might be in all police cars rather than with every officer. But first he's got to get political approval and deal with budget restrictions. Marcus Powell, London Tonight.
Well, Sophie Khan is a solicitor specialising in action against the police. So Commissioner Hogan-Howe putting his position forward today. Of course, the use of tasers is highly contentious.
Yes.
What's your experience with some of your clients?
The situations in which tasers have been used have been inappropriate. Someone having an epileptic seizure, someone in their house and being tasered, even though there's no scenario where there's any threat to the police or to the public. And that's an increase, continuous increase, not just in the cases that I'm having, but also across the country. There's a significant increase against vulnerable individuals, against children, against elderly, and it's very, very concerning to me.
Do you think the use of tasers are ever justifiable?
They're justifiable as an alternative to a firearm, I would say, or in a very serious circumstance where the police officer's life is at serious risk, and then a taser being used in that scenario if instead of a firearm, if that's possible. So in that limited scenario, I would say that's something that should be an option for the police.
And there does seem to be a great disparity between the forces about who uses them and for what.
Yes, there is. At the moment, it is being used across the board for any kind of public order incident, any kind of dispute, domestic dispute, and that was not the scenario why the taser was introduced into this country in the first place. It should very much stay, you know, to firearms officers who are trained, really.
Of course, the issues come up today after the discussion at the weekend where 4 police officers were stabbed answering a 999 call, and I'm guessing that's why there is a call to use them again.
But that's a very, very freak incident that doesn't happen on a normal day. It's a very freak incident. I don't know the background of the individual who did that. I don't know whether he's got any health issues, mental health issues, what his reason was to do that. But it's a very, very freak incident.
But do police officers have the right to protect themselves?
They have the right to protect themselves, and they have a lot of powers already to protect themselves. They have equipment that assist them to protect themselves, but they have the numbers, so that they can call for backup if necessary. And there are traditional policing that should be being pushed forward rather than this new taser, and then from the taser it'll be the bullets, and then from the bullets it'll become the gun. So it'll be a roller coaster, which we should really stop now, really.
A highly contentious subject. Sophie Khan, thank you very much indeed for your views this evening. Now,